This article is probably not going to be interesting to many people. Maybe some are interested, maybe many are interested. I don't know. But this is, in my opinion, this is kind of a niche issue, but it could turn out to be a really big issue. You saw the title of the video, Marvel canceling its Masterworks line. Now, I will start out by saying there are many people in this generation of comic book collectors that don't really know anything about what happened before the now. Now, obviously, there's some people who do. They read comic books, they do their research, they go into their backstories. And I'm not even saying that everybody from my generation did all of that either. That's not what I'm saying. We were just more connected to these old stories back then. Now there's been so many changes, so many multiversal changes, and so many of those stories that many people don't know Marvel characters from their beginning, from their inception, how they were intended. I'm not saying characters have to remain the same and there can't be any change, but I think there is a detriment when people don't know where these stories originated from or how these stories originated. So this was a very important issue to me. From Fandom Pulse, Peter J. Tomasi joins chorus of fans to call for Marvel Masterworks line to continue after cancellation announcement. The Masterworks line is reprints of old comic book runs, and this does several things. One thing it does is it gives you a better quality edition of these old comic books. I have some of these old comic books in my collection, like the originals, the original prints, and man, they did not hold up well. The paper, just not really the greatest, especially from back in the day. And these reprints really do a good job of giving you a little more. And another thing is, people who may never see these reprints or may never see these originals, may never look into these things, get to go back and see some of these stories and see how good the art is. So during this time, in my humble opinion, there was a standard of art. In order to be an artist, a professional artist, comic book artist, you had to meet a certain standard. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't happen at all today, but I will say in this generation, there does seem to be a little, the standard appears at times to be a little more lackluster. There are some artists that are decent, but not good enough necessarily to be on a main Marvel run. And I think they need some more work before they get to that point, Marvel or DC for that matter. So anyway, after reprinting the Marvel Comics line in a prestige format for decades, Marvel has canceled the Marvel Masterworks line, failing to complete several of its most popular classic storylines, leaving fans incensed at the incomplete collections. And I don't blame them, especially if you've been collecting this for years and you thought you were going to, continually be getting these runs. And now you find yourself at the point where it's like, hey, I did not finish this collection and Marvel has stopped. So now I either have to, through going through different comic book stores and comic conventions, I have to find these old issues and they're not going to be in the greatest condition, or I just have to stop collecting. And that's a travesty. But I imagine Marvel ended this because they weren't really making money on it. Look, here's the bottom line. I want Marvel to continue this. I think this is a great deal for the collecting and reading community at large. But if people aren't buying it and if they aren't recouping and making their money, we cannot expect any company to just continually produce this stuff and not make any money off of this. That just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Industry veteran writer Peter Tomasi has joined in the chorus to protest Marvel's cancellation and try to get the line restarted. Marvel Masterworks represents one of the comic book industry's most successful preservation efforts, serving as Marvel's flagship line of premium hardcover collections that have kept classic in print for over 5 decades. Launched in 1987, man, it's a long time ago, the Masterworks line systematically reprints Marvel's most significant runs in chronological order, from the company's golden age origins through its modern era. The oversized hardcover volumes feature restored artwork printed on high quality paper, often presenting the material in better condition than the original publication. Just as I said, the line covers virtually every major Marvel character and creative team from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's foundational Fantastic Four and X-Men's run of Chris Claremont's definitive X-Men stories, and X-Men runs to Chris Claremont's definitive X-Men stories, and Frank Miller's groundbreaking Daredevil work. What makes Marvel Masterworks valuable is its commitment to comprehensive coverage rather than cherry-picking only the most famous issues. Each volume typically collects 10 to 12 consecutive issues representing complete storylines and creative runs that might otherwise be lost to time. This approach has kept thousands of classic comics accessible to new generations of readers who would never encounter them otherwise. Exactly what I said. There's a lot of people that will not be familiar with any of these stories, will not be familiar with any of these works. They won't know who these writers are. They won't know the artists. They won't know when these stories are referenced in newer books. They won't be familiar at all. Now, there's plenty of resources online to help with that, but it always pays to actually have access to these books and be able to go back and read some of this stuff. I think that's the greatest way to keep up. However, in recent years, other forms of reprints have become viable for comics and much more popular than the expensive masterworks, such as omnibus collections and overall epic collections, in which readers can get a lot more issues for a lower price point though largely because of the restoration work of Marvel's Masterworks already did to create top quality presentations. This last week, Marvel announced that they would be shelving their Masterworks line as sales have plummeted on them as a result. This is just as I said. If they're not making money, I don't expect them to keep something running. Although I do think this is a travesty. This led to a lot of longtime collectors becoming incensed as they collected these books for decades and are faced with incomplete storylines. And that's a bummer, especially if you're collecting this expecting to keep going. I imagine, I'd be pretty incensed as well. One fan vented his frustration on this matter, saying, we are only one volumes away from getting McFarlane's Spidey, 2 volumes from completing Mantless Hulk, Simonson's Thor, and Stern's Avengers, 1 volume each from finishing Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night and Marvel's 2-in-1, and they're just flat out stopping them. Yeah, I imagine that really is taking some people back and taking them for a loop. What's the answer? Well, fans have to support things for things to make money, but I understand that Marvel has probably done themselves no favors in how they've conducted business in the last couple years. People haven't been happy, but needless to say, you have a veteran getting involved, and I think this is a good thing. His voice is probably going to matter, right? This is going to reach the top. This is going to reach the people that matter. And they're going to know, oh, wait a minute. Fans aren't really happy with what we're doing right now. Fans have told us this is not it. We need to continue this. And maybe Marvel will figure some way of reprinting these masterwork collections and making a profit at the same time. I don't know what their profit margin is, but big companies want to make big money. I get it. It's not always possible. So hopefully this actually continues. Hopefully Tomasi pointing light or flashing a light on this issue will make it bigger. Maybe the execs will see it and go, hey guys, we got a problem. There's something the fans want. We've ended it. Maybe we need to reconsider that or figure something out. I think it's caused, I think we have cause for some positivity in this issue. Maybe Marvel will actually see the light and go, yeah, we need to keep printing this. Who knows? We'll see what happens.